Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our coverage of Miami Art Week, Art Basel Miami. To those who don't know, Art Basel is one of the world's premier art fairs. It's held annually in Miami Beach. Um, and it showcases an array of modern and contemporary art. It features work from leading galleries, artists, and collectors from around the globe. Miami Art Week encompasses Art Basel within it and other satellite art fairs and events across Miami and Miami Beach. Um, and so it's a wonderful time, wonderfully vibrant and artful time in Miami. And so now I'd like to introduce our fearless CMO, Jeff Sass, based in Fort Lauderdale. So he was the obvious pick to attend Miami Art Week and Art Basel in Miami. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me here. And really, I've spent the last few days and over the weekend going to various events at Miami Art Week. So we thought we'd take a quick few minutes to just give an overview of some of the things I saw, and I'll talk a little bit about it.
Let's do it.
A second here, my screen. There we go. So Miami Art Week is composed of a lot of events, actually all over Miami. The signature event, of course, as Rachel mentioned, is Art Basel Miami, which is held in the Miami Beach Convention Center. But there's also Art Miami going on. There's NADA going on. There's the Untitled Art Fair, and there's probably a dozen other art fairs going on. Spectrum and Red Dot. Prism.art has an art fair. African.art has a fair going on. So there's a tremendous amount of events going on. It's almost impossible to see it all. And I only got to see a fraction of it, but I'll share a few quick highlights with you right now. So the first place I went was to Art Miami. As you can see, security was very tight. Actually, no, this is a sculpture that was in one of the gallery's booths. So believe it or not, this is a life-size sculpture of a security guard. And as you can see, it's remarkably realistic. You almost want to hold up a mirror to his mouth and see if he's breathing. So this was one of the things there. Art Miami was very commercial. A lot of really popular artists were displayed there. This is a Keith Haring, a lot of Keith Haring. This is a Damien Hirst piece, Basquiat, a lot of Basquiat at the fair in different booths. Many of these well-known artists have their work spread across different galleries in some cases. A lot of Alexander Calder, both some mobiles and some paintings. I grew up in New York City, and Alexander Calder was probably one of the first artists I came to really know by name as a child because he had this beautiful mobiles in the museums in New York and was very well known in New York. So he's always been a favorite of mine. So they had a lot of work of his. This is a Marc Chagall piece, also another favorite artist of mine. I actually have a print of his in my tiny collection of 3 pieces of art. But and it's not, it's not a valuable print, but it's a nice painting that I like. But this is a Marc Chagall one. And of course, there were some very famous paintings there. Well, not really. These are some humorous takes on some famous artwork. So this artist takes their rendition of some of the famous paintings like the Mona Lisa, Van Gogh's self-portrait, and Vermeer's painting, and attaches little toys to them and does some additional things. Like you can see Superman wiping out the eyes of the Vermeer painting. So there were some interesting portraits like this. And of course, what would an art fair be without a banana taped to a wall? You've probably heard about the recent auction of a banana taped to a wall for 6.2 million, I believe. At Art Miami, they had a banana taped to the wall, but I think in making a statement, the banana was actually a hand grenade. I think they're trying to blow up that concept of selling bananas taped to walls. There were some other portraits that were kind of interesting there on a humorous note. So here you could see portraits of Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos in different styles. That was a little bit of Art Miami. And obviously there's a lot of serious art, not just these humorous things. And then I went over to Art Basel. Actually, it was kind of fun this year because Art Miami is on one side of Biscayne Bay, and Art Basel is at the Convention Center in Miami Beach. This year, for the first time, they had free water taxi shuttles. So you could take a water taxi from Art Miami to Art Basel in Miami Beach, which was great. Art Basel, there's a lot of commercial stuff there too. Obviously, a lot of very high-priced items. I think the most expensive item for sale during Art Basel this year was, I think, a $30 million piece. There's also a lot of very eclectic avant-garde pieces. This is a statue. It's about 2.5 feet tall of a man with this mask on his head. I don't know what it represents. As we always do when the Dot Art team visits art fairs, we get to say hello to galleries who are using a Dot Art domain. And at Art Basel, it was fun because two of our adopter galleries were right next to each other. So in H15, there was Nara Rosler Dot Art from Sao Paulo, Brazil. And right next to them in H16 was OMR Dot Art, a very well-known gallery from Mexico City. So it was kind of fun to see the Dot Art galleries right next to each other. Also, many artists who use a Dot Art name are represented during Miami Art Week at Art Basel. This was a really interesting piece by Elena Tsui, and he's at elenatsui.art. He does a lot of interesting work with textiles and other materials. This piece in particular, you can't tell maybe from this picture unless you zoom in, it's actually made from flattened bottle caps. So these are all flattened bottle caps kind of sewn together, almost like a tapestry. Really interesting piece. And you can see the woman there, so you get a sense of the size of it and the scope. And that's another thing about Art Basel in the Convention Center. It's a massive venue. So there's a whole section where they have gigantic oversized pieces, like literally gigantic pieces that you would see maybe, in some industrial setting because they're far too large to put in someone's home. So really interesting stuff there in that regard. And again, a lot of Keith Haring, a lot of Basquiat, a lot of Andy Warhol, Picasso, Miro, a lot of well-known artists. This is a Kusama piece that was there. A lot of her work was there as well. So you can see a lot of up-and-coming artists, but also a lot of very well-established and very popular artists at Art Basel. This piece got a lot of attention. It's very large. You really can't tell the size from this picture, but it's probably 20 feet wide and maybe 5 or 6 feet tall. And this was actually done by an artist named Ernie Barnes. He actually did this in 1988, and he did it for Sylvester Stallone, and it's called Metamorphosis of Rocky. So if you look at the detail here, it kind of tells the Rocky saga through the different Rocky films in this piece. This one got a lot of attention, really kind of cool. Take a cool look at a pop culture film, popular film from the past. So this was kind of cool. Lots of stuff. To give you an idea, this is just a view from top of the escalator to give you a sense of how big Art Basel is in the Miami Convention Center. And if you go to the left, it continues on to the left far more, probably almost the same amount of size to the left of this. So it's a pretty big fair. It'll take you a couple of days to really see everything and walk through. And I'm just giving you a quick sample right now. And then, of course, it being Miami, there's the opportunity to have an art fair on the water. So this is an exhibition that was on the water featuring our official artist, the Dot Art official artist, Medina Casamova. This is her work, Depths, as part of our Time to Art campaign. And this was a floating art exhibition put on by the Art Innovation Gallery. So why not have it on the water too, since you're in Miami? So that gives you a sense of what Miami Art Week looked like. Looking first at those two shows that I went to in those days. I also went to the NADA exhibition, which is the New Art Dealers Alliance, and a few other shows. And I could have spent a few more days there, but we ran out of time. Pretty exciting. That's a quick look at Art Basel and Miami Art Week.
That sounds amazing. I remember when you and I went to Art Basel, Jeff, maybe last year, I guess. Yep. It was impossible to cover it all, but I love how much fun people are having with art. It seems it's a lot of playful art there. I did have a question. Yeah. You mentioned a lot of well-known artists, a lot of big names, and I'm wondering, are these kinds of events exclusive for really established artists, or did you see a mix of up and coming? I mean, what's the situation there?
Yeah, I think the different events have a different flavor. I think, Art Miami Nada has a lot of up and coming artists, but there's also sprinkled in some of the well known artists, as I mentioned. But I think Art Basel this year, I think, went out of their way to try to expand it. I think I read that there were 34 galleries that had never exhibited at Art Basel before, and something like 50 or more new artists who had never been presented there before. So I do think they're making a concerted effort to bring in some, new vision, fresh artists, and not just have the classics. Of course, there are collectors coming from around the world to these events, so they're going to have some high-profile pieces from well-known artists for the collectors. But these same collectors are also looking to discover, new talent and to start collecting an artist when they're not well known, in the hopes that one day their collection will become extremely valuable as the artist becomes more known. So I think this year they did go out of their way to bring in a lot of new galleries and new artists. It was really good to see.
Do you also have any notes on the presence of digital art? I know our official artist got some, we presented on a digital stage on that boat. But I'm wondering what you felt, how prevalent was digital art at these events?
Yeah, it was interesting that there is certainly more digital art at the lesser events than there is at Art Basel. And I shouldn't call them lesser events. At the smaller events or the other events, there was more digital. At Art Miami, actually, I think it was in the Oliver Cole Gallery, they had 8 pieces by an artist that were interactive, which was kind of cool. I have some video of it. We're going to share a lot more content and video from the show than I could share today. We just have so much stuff I captured there. But these were kind of cool. The paintings are not even paintings, but the art itself had little panels that would flip over, and they were colored. But there was a hidden camera somewhere pointing outwards, and it captured what you did. So if you moved your hand in front of the painting, the little, almost like sequins, would flip the way you moved your hand. So you could actually, it was like motion detecting art, and the art changed as you moved in front of it. And there was like 8 different ones. Those were very popular. I actually heard that a few of them were purchased by some celebrities. I think Whoopi Goldberg bought one of them. Someone told me from the gallery. Yeah, which was kind of neat. So there was that kind of digital stuff. There were some digital pieces. I would say there were more digital pieces at Art Basel this year than we saw last year, but still not a lot. It's still a lot of mixed media, painting, sculpture, quite a lot of sculpture, a lot of mixed media stuff, some very interesting mixed media stuff. And I think during the Miami Art Week, there were several events that are digital only or digital focused. And in Art Basel, I will say they did have a section where they had some digital art using the Solana platform. So Solana had a booth as a gallery kind of thing where they had some NFT artists, and actually the artists were there to talk about their work. And I talked to a few of those artists. Actually, one of them already had his .art domain, so I had nothing to pitch him. So there was more, I think, this year than last year, but it's still predominantly, paintings, mixed media, sculpture, some textile stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm interested to see what it's going to be like next year. Thank you so much for that rundown, Jeff. That's very fascinating. And thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you.
We'll be sharing more content related to Miami Art Week in the coming days, as Jeff said.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Follow us on social media. We'll be sharing more. I took literally hundreds of pictures and videos, more than I have had time yet to go through and share. So we'll be sharing some more follow-up content about Miami Art Week. And it was a lot of fun. It's always fun to see art adopters in the wild, so to speak. So it was fun to talk to them and see them. And it was really inspiring to see all the creativity. These shows really remind you how much interesting creativity there is in the art world, because there are a lot of things that look derivative, and then there are a lot of things that are completely original. It's unlike anything you've ever seen before. So it's very inspiring to be surrounded by it during these few days.
Yep. Always exciting to be in the art world. Well, thank you so much. And thanks again to our viewers.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.